20 years ago, if your truck stopped running, you grabbed a wrench, opened the hood, and fixed it yourself. Maybe it was a clogged carburetor, a bad alternator, a dead fuel pump. Either way, the problem was physical. You could see it, touch it, replace it, and get back on the road. But today, your truck can be mechanically perfect and still become completely useless because of one dead computer chip the size of your thumb. And that is exactly what is happening across America right now. Owners everywhere are discovering the same frustrating reality. A vehicle with a healthy engine, strong transmission, solid suspension, and low miles can suddenly become undrivable because one tiny electronic module failed. And the replacement part either costs a fortune or no longer exists. That is the modern automotive industry in one sentence. Vehicles no longer die when the engine dies. They die when software support ends. And that is why more drivers are starting to fight back. Because buried underneath all the complicated electronics, encrypted systems, and dealership-only software is a truth the industry does not want people to think about anymore. A vehicle is still just fuel, spark, compression, and airflow. That basic formula has not changed in over 100 years. The problem is that modern vehicles bury those simple systems underneath layers of computers and proprietary electronics designed to keep owners dependent on dealerships. And nowhere is that more obvious than the engine control module, the brain of the entire vehicle. By the late 1990s and early 2000s, nearly every major automaker switched to fully computer-controlled engines. The ECM became responsible for fuel injectors, ignition timing, idle control, emission systems, throttle response, and even transmission shifting. At first, this looked like progress. Engines became more efficient, fuel economy improved, emissions dropped, but there was a hidden trade-off nobody really thought about at the time. When older mechanical systems failed, you replaced physical parts. But when a modern computer-controlled system fails, the entire vehicle can become useless overnight. And now, those early computer-controlled vehicles are aging out. Capacitors inside the ECMs fail, circuit boards corrode, heat cracks solder joints after decades of use, and when those modules finally die, dealerships often give owners the same devastating answer: sorry, discontinued. That single word is pushing thousands of drivers towards something the modern auto industry absolutely hates: independence. Instead of begging dealerships for obsolete electronics, mechanics are ripping factory computers out of older trucks entirely and replacing them with standalone aftermarket systems. And honestly, it is becoming one of the smartest long-term survival strategies for vehicle ownership. Systems like Holley Terminator or Haltech setups allow owners to completely bypass factory engine management. The process sounds extreme because it is. You remove the old factory wiring harness, you disconnect the aging ECM, then you install a completely independent aftermarket computer that you fully control yourself. And suddenly the power dynamic changes. The truck no longer depends on dealership software updates. There is no cellular modem connected to corporate servers. You plug your own laptop into the vehicle, tune it yourself, read your own diagnostics, and replace your own sensors. That level of independence terrifies modern automakers. But there is one catch most people do not realize. On many early 2000s vehicles, the automatic transmission depends on communication from the factory engine computer. Transmissions like the GM4 L60E or Ford 4 R7OW rely heavily on electronic controls for shifting. Remove the factory ECM without a backup plan and the transmission panics. It defaults into limp mode, locks itself into third gear, and drives horribly. So mechanics adapted to that problem too. Some install standalone transmission controllers that independently manage shifting. Others go even further and completely eliminate the electronics by swapping in manual transmissions. Think about how crazy that is in 2026. While manufacturers push cloud-connected vehicles and subscription-based features, some mechanics are converting trucks back to manual transmissions just to escape software dependency. That is not nostalgia anymore. That is survival. And the rebellion goes way beyond engine computers. Take ignition systems. Modern push-button start systems are marketed as advanced convenience, But many mechanics see them differently. They see them as expensive electronic locks tied to proprietary security systems. Even older trucks started using electronic immobilizers in the late 1990s. Systems like GM VATS or Ford PATS constantly search for a specific resistance value or transponder signal inside the ignition key. If the computer does not detect the correct signal, it shuts off the fuel injectors within seconds. So even if the engine cranks, the truck immediately dies. But mechanics found another loophole. Many of these systems are actually searching for a very specific electrical resistance. So instead of replacing expensive ignition modules, owners started bypassing them with resistors costing literal cents. They remove the steering column cover, trace the ignition wires, solder in the correct resistor, and permanently fool the security module into thinking the factory key is present. Then comes the real blue-collar engineering: heavy-duty marine toggle switches, push-button starters, and simple hardware store electrical parts replacing discontinued dealership electronics. And here's the funny part: these homemade systems often outlast the original factory components. Because simplicity is reliable, that same mindset is spreading across entire vehicles. Climate control systems in older trucks rely on fragile modules, tiny plastic gears, and electronic actuators that constantly fail. But mechanics realize something simple: an air conditioning blower motor is basically just an electric fan. So instead of replacing expensive factory modules, many owners bypass the system completely using simple resistors, rheostat dials, and direct wiring. It may not look factory anymore, but it blows cold air, works reliably, and can be repaired forever. And nowhere is the rebellion more extreme than the carburetor swap. When modern fuel injection systems become too expensive or impossible to maintain, some owners go completely analog again. A carburetor needs no software updates, subscriptions, or encrypted security systems. It runs on pure mechanical airflow and fuel vacuum dynamics. No throttle body failures, no limp mode, no software lockouts, and most importantly, it can be repaired almost anywhere. If a gasket fails, you can literally cut a replacement from cardboard and drive home. Try doing that with a dead microchip. That is the difference between mechanical systems and digital dependency. Mechanical problems can be seen, repaired, and worked around. Digital systems either work or suddenly brick the entire vehicle, and the industry knows exactly where this is heading. Modern vehicles are becoming rolling computers packed with subscriptions, cloud-linked diagnostics, software lockouts, and features hidden behind monthly payments. That is why the aftermarket matters more than ever. Every standalone wiring harness, manual swap, or carburetor conversion proves one thing: the vehicle still belongs to the owner, not the manufacturer. And honestly, that mindset matters more every year. As vehicles become more software dependent, more owners are getting trapped behind dealership-only repairs. But the resistance is growing too. Independent shops, aftermarket companies, and everyday drivers are learning how to bypass the system themselves. At the end of the day, every engine still runs on the same basics: fuel, spark, compression, and airflow. The industry buried those simple systems under layers of software, but mechanics are peeling them back one wire at a time. So now we want to hear from you. What is the craziest modification or bypass you have done to keep an older vehicle alive? Drop your stories in the comments, hit subscribe, support the aftermarket, and we will see you in the next one.